The Pyramids of Montauk, Chapter 4. The investigation is underway. I set out to find out what was at the bottom of the Montauk property enigma and sought out the index to the New York Times. Unfortunately, the local Long Island paper Newsday is not indexed, and that makes research very difficult. I soon discovered that on February 6, 1984, an ad appeared on the page B4 of the Times concerning Camp Hero. It announced that on February 8, 1984, the General Services Administration, a federal agency, would sell at public auction a 278-acre property at Montauk Point. It said that the site was a former U.S. Air Force station. The ad was put out by Judith Hope, the East Hampton town supervisor, and warned that such a sale by the GSA was unlawful because it would violate the National Environmental Policy Act, the Coastal Zone Management Act, and other law as applicable to the conduct of federal agencies. The ad further stated that on January 6, 1984, the town board of the town of East Hampton acted unanimously and pursuant to the authority vested in it by the people and legislature of the state of New York, designated the entire 278 acres, which is the subject of the GSA sale, for parks and conservation use. This auction was based on sound principles of natural resource preservation and community planning and was necessary in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. According to the East Hampton Town Code, Section 153-17A, the only uses to which land so zoned may be put are golf courses and tennis courts, hunting and nature preserves, parks, recreational and beach areas, buildings customarily related to the above, such as clubhouses, administration, and maintenance buildings. Council advises that no houses, hotels, motels, condominiums, cooperative apartments, or other residential, commercial, or industrial structures, uses, or facilities of any kind may be lawfully constructed or maintained by any party on the subject premises for so long as said premises are so zoned. The ad further stated it intended to block the sale of the Air Force Station property and to uphold the current zoning of the property. We have to wonder if someone changed the zoning so that a radar installation could be set up. Also, on February 6, Lindsey Gruson writes a special to the New York Times entitled, "Officials Try to Protect U.S. Tract at Montauk." He states that the War Department built a military base at Montauk, camouflaged as a scenic fishing village on this isolated and vulnerable beachhead. No enemy ever tried to come ashore. He obviously hadn't read the various accounts of Nazis coming ashore at Montauk. Nor did he consider that perhaps the biggest enemy of humanity was residing right then and there at the Montauk base. The article said that the radar installation was closed 3 years earlier, and the land was declared surplus. President Reagan, concerned by budget deficits, ordered the government 2 years ago to sell surplus land to raise money to reduce the federal debt. Previously, unneeded federal land was given to the states for a nominal fee, provided they use the acreage for parks or other public purposes. Interestingly, there is again no mention of using the base for radar purposes. Town Supervisor Tony Bullock was quoted as saying, "The parks and conservation zoning is very restrictive. It also allows trees and flowers, and that's about it." Almost every official at every level of government fought the attempt by the GSA to sell the property. On February 7th, the New York Times reports that Judge Leonard D. Wexler of Federal District Court temporarily blocked the government from selling a 278-acre former Air Force station on Montauk Point. He issued a preliminary injunction allowing the government to receive bids on the property at a public auction, but ordered that no sale be made pending a court hearing. The following day, the Times ran another article on the base. It said that a Manhattan lawyer by the name of Jack Weprin bid $1.9 million for the property on behalf of Joshua Sundance Incorporated. Weprin wouldn't reveal what he planned to do with the property. A spokesman for the GSA said that the 20-minute auction had attracted 2 active bidders. On February 12th, Jane Perlez writes a special to the New York Times, which has Interior Secretary William P. Clark entering the dispute. He sides with the town of East Hampton and writes to the GSA favoring that the property be preserved by New York State. His plan would allow the tract of land known as Camp Hero to be added to the Montauk Point State Park in return for 125 acres of state property being given to the Fire Island National Seashore. This was to be a land swap. Interestingly, his letter arrived at the GSA the day before the auction. It seems officials from all quarters were making a desperate attempt to keep the property out of private hands. Senator Patrick Moynihan also entered the fold. He pointed out a law to the GSA that allows them to transfer without charge federal property that is used as park land. On May 1st, we are treated to an article again by Ms. Perlez, which says that Senators Moynihan and Alphonse D'Amato introduced an amendment in the Senate that would result in the trade of the federally owned Montauk land for the 125 acres of land on the state's Fire Island property. William P. Clark, the Secretary of the Interior, wanted the land assigned to his department by the GSA so that he could turn it over to New York State. Judge Wexler prohibited such transfer until he could decide whether the federal agency, GSA, had acted illegally in trying to sell the land. Laura Durkin of Newsday reports on July 4th, 1984, that Congress passed a tax bill which also called for the land swap referred to above. GSA spokesman Paul Costello was quoted as saying the tax bill had clearly stated that the highest and best use of the property was for parks and recreation purposes. So the entire 278 acres will go to the Department of Interior, and Interior will make the transfer to New York State. Everyone seems to be ecstatic as the precious environmental property will not go to opportunistic developers. The New York Times reports in the same week that the land swap is taking place and that a ceremony would be held on the following Wednesday to officially mark the exchange. It would be held on the Montauk property. And what is thus far the most surprising aspect of this investigation, there is no article that I could find in either the New York Times or Newsday that marks the Wednesday ceremony. Newspapers live for that kind of reporting, and you would expect a big article. No mention was made. Did the officials walk into a time warp? Was the transaction ever made? Notice that the legislation was carefully worded, according to the GSA spokesman, that the Department of the Interior would make the transfer to New York State. I didn't know exactly how the bill was worded, but for all I knew from reading the paper, the property could still have been in the hands of the Department of the Interior. One has to wonder if the entire press coverage was a manipulation. But I would soon see that the property crisis reaches much deeper. There is yet another claimant to the land which housed the Montauk Air Force Station. Stay tuned, folks. It's intermission time. Exercise your mind. Grab a Dr. Pepper, vanilla flavored, and come back for Chapter 5 and the continuing story of the pyramids of Montauk. Namaste, namaskaram.